Hello, this is Yogeshwar 7000 again, and I'm back with another very interesting topic in Vedic astrology today. And today we will be talking about the age of the planets as given to us by the ancient scriptures. So, as we know that in Vedic astrology, without considering the subplanets or the upagraha, we just consider 9 planets, and out of these 9 planets there are 7 planets in physical form, and the 2 planets which do not have any physical body are Rahu and Ketu. So we just consider mainly 9 planets. We do not consider Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, which are taken into consideration by Western astrologers, because the logic given by the ancient sages was that although they knew the existence of these other planets like Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, they felt that whichever planet is not visible to the physical eye from the earth, which is not visible other than Rahu and Ketu, of course, which have been given a lot of importance, should not be taken into consideration just because their effects are not felt on the planet Earth and for people who live on the planet Earth. So that's the logic given to us by the ancient sages. Of course, Western astrologers may not agree with this logic, but that's the reason why none of the ancient scriptures, ancient Hindu Vedic scriptures which are related to astrology, talk about the other planets. So the age of the planets also has been given to us by the Vedic scriptures, Vedic astrological scriptures rather, and this is how it goes. So Mars has been described as a child in certain scriptures. In certain scriptures it has been described as a young man, but in certain scriptures Mars has been described as a child. And Mercury, you would know that Mercury also has been described as a child in certain scriptures, but in certain scriptures Mercury is not a child, it is a boy. So, a boy you would consider somebody who's still a child, I would say, but say between 10 and 15 years of age. That's like a boy. And a real child, as per the ancient scriptures, Mars indicates a child until 4, 5, 6 years of age. So but once again, I'll caution there are certain contradictions as far as age is concerned between certain Vedic astrological scriptures. So let's assume for a moment Mars has been indicated as a child and Mercury has been indicated as a boy. Jupiter has been indicated as a person who is 30 years of age. Venus has been described in the ancient scriptures as a person of 16 years of age. Sun is a person which has been described as a person of 50 years of age. Moon has been described as a person who is 70 years of age. And Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu, these 3 planets, are each 100 years of age. Now the most important thing is that how do we interpret this shloka which has been given in the ancient scriptures about the age of the planets. Now, of course, as we know, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Sun, Moon, Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu, these 9 planets are thousands and thousands and thousands of years of age. So it doesn't make sense if we say, okay, well, Mars is a very small child and Mercury is just a boy and Jupiter is only 30 years. So that's not how it has to be interpreted. Now, several astrologers have interpreted in certain ways, just like by describing that Venus is 16 years of age, meaning which a person who is 16 years of age will experience the effect of Venus most, and a person who is 30 years of age will experience the effect of Jupiter most. And those astrologers try to explain that, well, you see, and they try to show that, look, You know, when a person is a teenager, he's looking for luxuries, love, romance, and that's why Venus has been described as 16 years. And they would also say that, well, Jupiter has been described as 30 years, means that that's the time when he actually acquires higher knowledge, and that's why it's been described as 30 years of age. But this is coming from a few lectures which I have listened to by several astrologers, but I do not agree to this point of view. And for me, as far as the interpretation goes of this shloka, by describing Mercury as a boy and Jupiter as a person of 30 years and Venus as a person of 16 years of age, Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu has been described as 100 years of age, does not mean that those person will acquire the qualities of those planets at that age. I mean, try to think of it. Moon has been described as 70 years of age, and Moon is about emotion and compassion and generosity. So one has to wait 70 years to imbibe those qualities? No. Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu. Saturn describes, you know, a person who's really hardworking, and he's been described as a 100-year-old person. But does that mean that a person has to wait 100 years to imbibe the qualities of Saturn? No. Similarly, Jupiter has been described as a 30-year-old person. So does that mean that you will imbibe the qualities of Jupiter at the age 30? I mean, there have been saints in ancient India. One example comes to be of Adi Shankaracharya and people like Gyaneshwar and all. They acquired knowledge much earlier, some as early as in their teens. So that doesn't make sense that, okay, well, you'll have the effects of Jupiter mostly at the age of 30. No, my interpretation of this is, and I've discussed this with several other astrologers who have agreed with me as well, and of course some do not, because they keep saying that, you know, you'll get the most effects of that planet at the age which have been described. Jupiter's effect will be felt at 30 years and Venus's effect will be felt at 16 years. No, and definitely, you know, that's not true, and I gave you the reasons why. My interpretation is that if Mars has been described as a child, and if you see a birth chart which is influenced by Mars, okay, then he or she will behave like a child, okay? Mercury is a boy, so if you see a birth chart of a person who is influenced by Mercury through the nakshatras, through the moon sign, through the lagna, whichever way, if he's influenced by the planet Mercury, then he is boyish-like in his attitude, in his temperament, in his personality, okay? If you see the influence of Jupiter in a birth chart, he will be behaving as if he's a 30-year-old person, a little towards maturity and gaining knowledge, and very vibrant, because 30 years is an age of intelligence, and, you know, where people are vibrant and they're into action. So that's, if a person you see in the birth chart is influenced by Jupiter, then he's going to behave in his temperament and his behavior like a 30-year-old person. If you see the influence of Venus in a birth chart, then he either, like I said, could be through the ascendant, through the moon sign, through the Lord of the Nakshatra where the moon is placed, then he will behave like a 16-year-old person. If a person has the influence of Sun, then he will have a temperament or a behavior of a 50-year-old person. And if a person is influenced by Moon, he will have the behavior and temperament of a 70-year-old person. And if his birth chart has the influence of either Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu, or Ketu, either of these planets or all these planets, then he will behave like 100 years person. Now let's translate into the behavioral patterns. So a behavioral pattern of a planet Mars, which is childlike, is, of course, he'll be he could be arrogant, he could be very impulsive, he could take decisions without thinking, and he could be very vibrant and full of energy. And we see that in Mars influence people, or when Mars is influenced in that birth chart. So that makes sense. If a birth chart is influenced by Mercury, he'll be like a boy, and the boy's behavior is, well, he is playful, he's humorous, he's carefree, and that's what the characteristics of Mercury are. If the birth chart is influenced by Jupiter, he will be like a 30-year-old, which means that he will behave as if, he's acquiring knowledge, he's already acquired knowledge, he's a little wiser, getting wiser, and that's how the behavior is going to see. That's the behavior you're going to see in him based on his birth chart. Similarly, if Venus is influencing that planet, or that birth chart rather, and like I said, it could be several ways: through the Lagna, through the moon sign, through the sun sign, through the Lord of the Nakshatra where he's placed, or where moon is placed, then he will be behaving like we're talking about Venus, I think, right? So he'll be behaving like a 16-year-old person. And a 16-year-old person is, who's in his teenage, the sweet 16 age, where you have some kind of a romance in your life, and you love beautiful things, you love beautiful clothes, you like some luxuries, you are out there to experience the beauties and luxuries of life, you love perfumes, you try to dress well, you try to get a nice hairstyle maybe, or you try to socialize with people, a little romance here and there. That's so if Venus is influencing that person's birth chart, that's the kind of characteristic temperament you'll see in that person. Now, in case Sun is influencing that person, then of course he'll behave like a 50-year-old person who's a little mature, who's ready to assume power and responsibility, because Sun is about power, royalty, power, authority, responsibility, of course, because authority and responsibility go together. That's the attitude that person will have. Moon is been described as 70 years, so if his birth chart is influenced by Moon, then he'll behave like a 70-year-old person, and a 70-year-old person really, really matured, and really, who understands that the world is an illusion, it's Maya. So he eventually gives up his aggressive attitude, his attitude of romance and love. Of course, Moon is related to love and romance as well, but more so towards helping people. It's a real sattvic planet. Moon is a real sattvic planet, because he understands. A 70-year-old person understands now it's not worth it to go in that rat race, and he's kind of gentler, calmer. Moon is about calmness, gentle, calm, compassionate, and try to help others, because that's what he feels is going to help him go to a higher realm of consciousness, so as to say. And of course, Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu have been described as 100 years of age, which means that, well, they're really, really mature, like an old, matured wine, who understand and who will not get into any kind of an aggressive, ambitious attitude, or a boyish, carefree attitude, or in the learning mode, or in the romance mode, or in the authoritative mode of ruling and royalty and authority and responsibility, or in the mode of compassion. They are totally mature. So that's the reason why Ketu is Rahu, of course, is concerned more with materialism, but advanced stage of materialism where they would have understood all aspects of materialism by then. Saturn would have understood all aspects of karma by then, because Saturn is a karmic planet, and it's been described as age 100, really mature, old wine kind of a person who understands, the whole theory of karma. Rahu understands the whole planning and his ways to achieve those goals towards materialism. And Ketu has also been described as totally mature, who understood that materialism is okay, but the final goal is the liberation or moksha. And they're really, really mature in their approach. Now, how do we translate this into how astrology can help? And I've always explained to you that astrology is a very powerful tool. It is very, very powerful. And through astrology, the art of living. That's the real art of living. I know the Sri Ravi Shankar is not going to like it, because his art of living is about something, and I really respect Sri Ravi Shankar. But the real art of living is to understand your birth chart and to understand the planets, and to be able to determine as to how do we deal with our life. And how do you deal with our lives is once we understand our charts and we understand the birth charts of people whom we are in relationship with. It could be a wife, a daughter, a business partner, a friend, a father, a mother, an uncle, anybody. So how does it translate? So if you study that person's chart, if Mars is influencing him, deal with him like a child. If you see a person whom you're in relationship with, like I said, could be any relationship, a wife, a daughter, a son, a father, a mother, or uncle, anybody. Then if you see Mercury influencing his birth chart, then try to deal with him like a boy. Consider him like he's boyish-like, so deal with him accordingly. So just to give you an example, if you see Saturn influencing his birth chart, and you start dealing with him like a boy, it's not going to work. If you see Rahu influencing him, and if you start dealing him with like a child, it's not going to work. Similarly, if you see a person's birth chart influenced by Jupiter, then try to deal with him as if you're dealing with a 30-year-old person who's, in that age of 30, acquired some knowledge, looking out for more knowledge, and, kind of a sattvic temperament. Try to deal with him with that kind of a 30-year-old person. So don't try to deal with him like a 16-year-old or a child or a boy. Deal with him as if you're dealing with a 30-year-old, and you'll never go wrong. Venus, if a person's birth chart is influenced by Venus and he's in a relationship, he may be an employee, a boss, a friend, a business partner, a wife or son or daughter. If you see Venus influencing him, deal with him as if you're dealing with a 16-year-old person who's, full of romance and luxuries and looking out for, interesting things in life, and looking out for, comforts in life, and who's always looking out for good things in life. So if you start dealing with him like a Jupiter person, it's not going to work. Deal with him as if you're dealing with a 16-year-old teenager who's out there to enjoy the beauties and goodness of life. Deal with him accordingly. You will never go wrong. Don't treat him like a child. He's not going to like it. Don't treat him like a boy. He's not going to like it. Don't treat him like a 100-year-old person, matured person. He's not going to like it. So, once again, astrology helps us in several ways. And one of the ways is that, you know how to live life and deal with people based on our understanding of somebody's birth chart, and based on our understanding of astrology. If Sun is influencing a person's birth chart, he has to be dealt with accordingly. He would like to be in an authoritative mode. He's going to be egoistic, so never hurt his ego. Okay, he's going to be generous, so admire his generosity. He's going to be, willing to take responsibility. Let him take responsibility, and then you'll have the best relationship with him or her, whoever is in question here. If Moon is influencing his birth chart, then of course, he's to be dealt accordingly. That he has understood, compassion is the way, helping people is the way, being happy is the way, no negative feelings, deal with him accordingly. So if you start dealing with somebody who has an influence of moon in a birth chart, and if you start dealing him with like a person who's 16 years of age, which has been related to the planet Venus, then it's not going to work. You have to know that, well, moon is understood that, it's all about compassion, helping, happy, the real sattvic way of living, not rajasic like Venus. So deal with him, and you'll have the best relationship. And this can also be translated on having the best relationship with your spouses, especially because we're all struggling, especially dealing with spouses, because they're two different personalities, and all it requires is some adjustment. And astrology can come in as a very, very powerful tool towards adjustment, if we understand others' birth charts, of course. And then people who are influenced by Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu, don't try to influence them like you would influence a child or a boy or a 16-year-old. He's already ripe, and he's understood, and he's got firm faith and beliefs in what they know and what they've done and what they've experienced. So just go with the flow with them. Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu people who have that influence in their birth chart, just go with the flow. Don't try to confront them, don't try to argue with them too much, don't try to influence them, don't try to sermonize them, so as to say. Very, very important tool here to understand people through this little shloka, which comes from the ancient scriptures. So we should be really, really thankful to the ancient sages for giving us this spiritual knowledge. So hopefully you enjoyed this little video on the age of planets. And in the meanwhile, I will recommend subscribe to my channel and check out my website. There is a link below. And I will see you with an interesting topic on Vedic astrology very soon. Goodbye.